Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. I call myself the plant killer. My real name is Jessica. I used to make recipes for this channel all the time, and I've become a real rebel according to the algorithm of YouTube, because now I post about my opinions on travel, what it's like to live in Bolivia as a gringa. And look who I have joining me today for the first time for like a sit down.
Hello, Simon from New Zealand.
Mi pareja, Simon, Don Simon. And I hope you like our little setup here. We work with what we have. We haven't invested in like a really fancy mic or anything yet. And we have a really dirty, covered in mud tripod because our lives are covered in mud.
Here's the bell.
All right, so in this video, we're going to get into from our experiences coming from gringos, so you can take this with a grain of salt. But, you know, Simon has spent 13 years, I mean, more or less. He doesn't really know his timetable here, but in Bolivia specifically. He's done some traveling in Latin America, and obviously so have I. And I've been full-time in one spot for 2 years since I've lived anywhere else. So we have a lot to say about coming here as a traveler or being here for a longer period of time. The kind of things that you're going to encounter about the culture that might be different if you come from the States, Europe, Australia, places así. We're gonna share some things that might be a little more controversial or just a deeper dive into beyond just like being prepared with money and some of the scams. Like, we'll share some of the scams, but things that happen more commonly when you're here for a longer period of time. I don't know how many countries you've been to in Latin America. I've been to a few in Central America and a few in South America. Every country is extremely different in so many ways, but there's also some commonalities. And so we're going to be generalizing a bit, trigger warning, but the stuff that we're going to be sharing is stuff that does happen. And I'll mention a little more at the end of this video about a discount that we have for those of you who are wanting to travel for cheap and do it through like a travel exchange platform. We prefer Worldpackers, highly recommend them, and we'll talk a little more about them at the end of this video.
Yeah, volunteering is a great way to keep your costs low and to get to know the place and the people from someone that lives there.
So one of the things to really look forward to when you're coming to Latin America is how affordable it is. I mean, this is an obvious thing. Most of you know this without knowing hardly anything about Latin America. But I remember looking up an article when I was planning to travel, like, how much money do I need to go? And someone said in 6 months I would need $15,000 saved up to travel. It's not true at all. The amount of money that you bring with you, if you went to Europe, you would last a fraction of as much time as you would coming to Latin America.
Often you actually get more experience with the locals and the culture if you take less money. It's the same in New Zealand too. You know, if you hitchhike, or instead of isolating yourself in a hotel and just going to fancy restaurants where the locals don't go, if you're on a budget, you often end up interacting more with the locals, or volunteering in a place and getting to know it a lot more profoundly.
Yeah, we spend $1.50 on lunch here. Maybe $2 maximum for like dinner in the countryside. Obviously in the city it's a little more expensive. But I actually know a couple from Hungary. They, in 6 months, only spent $1,500. Yeah, they were kind of roughing it, sleeping on bus stops and such. But the point is, money can go a long way here. So one of the things to be prepared for relating to money is the petty theft in Latin America. I personally don't think that this is over-exaggerated, as many things are, or that is highlighted on the news that people warn you about who've actually never been here. And they tell you these deep, dark, crazy stories that have happened to travelers disappearing and things like that. Well, the thing you really do need to worry about is pickpocketing. In the city here, I have had my phone stolen out of my hand on public transportation. Especially if you're on a bus, you always want to have your backpack, like in between your legs and in front of you, to where no one can just snap it when you're sleeping. That happens a lot when people are sleeping. People on motorcycles will reach into cabs, grab your phone right out of your hand. If you're walking across the street and you have it in your hand, they can just take it right from you. In El Campo, you don't have to worry about those kind of things unless there's like a holiday and some people from out of town. Just be alert and don't look lost whenever you're out on the street in a big city, especially downtown areas. Know where you're going, look it up at your hostel, the map, and unless you really, really have to, get your phone out, back yourself into a corner of like a shop where you can see everything in front of you and use your phone. But just know the iPhones are a huge target in South America.
Yeah, if you go to a big open air market or a place where you know that there are pickpocketers, it's an idea to every now and then just stop and look behind you. And if you see a guy like 5 meters behind you with a hat on and a backpack, check again and look at them, and they'll get the message. Usually that's the kind of person that would be looking for an opportunity. They'll leave. The other thing is, if you're in a situation like that, wanting to buy, just have the money you want in your pocket here and your phone maybe there, and keep your hand on that pocket. Don't have all your money there.
The good thing is that most of the time, if you get robbed when you're traveling, at least here in Bolivia, from our experience and the people I know who've had things taken from them, is they do it in a very subtle and not aggressive way. Like, there's a whole bunch of scams you can read about online where they like drop change, spill something on you. They're always working in pairs, and before you even realize it, it'll be seconds and you're like, where's my phone? And someone's off with it. So it's better than someone having a gun or a knife put up to you, which is a lot more of a rare occasion. But just don't give papaya, as they say in Colombia. Don't be wearing blingy jewelry and, nice clothes with brands. Like, people here are very aware of some really nice name brand things. You're already a target for looking different. So don't give papaya means like don't give people the opportunity to steal from you, because at that point it's your fault more than it is that you're a victim. One of the things that I love that you can look forward to about Latin America is how unsuperficial that it is. Like, obviously I'm generalizing this, it's not like this everywhere. You can get away with wearing the most simple of clothing, less jewelry, less makeup. I mean, I only honestly put on makeup sometimes for videos that I make, and I won't wear makeup for months on end. I'll never put a blow dryer to my hair, and I've honestly never felt so beautiful in my life than whenever I'm in Latin America. You tend to be outdoors more, so you have this glowy skin, you're more active, you're very in touch and close with nature. And so I like how minimal and less expectation that there is from people who are traveling or even living in Latin American countries.
But
do you have anything to add to that?
No.
Simon's going to be chiming in on some things, but not everything, yeah? Because I kind of put together the outline for this video. So one thing you want to be prepared for when coming here, especially as a woman, is that the flirt culture, I'm just kind of naming it that right now, is very different than where I come from. I've had to learn some hard lessons since living here, that when you greet a man on the streets or you give him a little extra time to have a conversation, because like where I come from Texas, it literally means friendly in a Native American language. And so it's very normal for people to go above and beyond to help you no matter what your gender is and without expectations. We're here, when you give, as a woman, men a little extra attention or talk to them looking at them straight in the eyes, they can safely assume, according to them, that you're interested in sleeping with them. Even we've had some interactions with Simon's close friends who are Bolivian, who have said some inappropriate things to me, reached out to me at weird hours of the night. And these are friends of his, people he knows, and most of them even have partners.
I did have to confront a worker of mine who took a girl on a tour, a volunteer on a tour, and was like that. And ended up like touching her inappropriately, like trying to pretend like it was sort of friendly, when he'd been hitting on her a lot, and he didn't think that he'd done anything. So, well, in Bolivia, like if you accept to go on the motorbike of a guy, that's definitely an expression of interest, or they'll take that as an expression of interest, and they don't take no the first time, so they might try and get you drunk and just keep persisting, and that's in a Western culture that's too pushy, disrespectful, and can even cross a line to being like
violating.
Violating. So
they don't think they do anything wrong, and this isn't saying everyone's like this here or in other countries, but it's very common, and I'm very aware of it, and I've had to actually change a bit of my own personality with how I interact with people here. I've had to put up a wall, be very quick to shake hands, not look too long in the eyes with men, because I don't want to make them think that I'm interested, even if I'm just being myself and being friendly, So you really want to guard yourself as a female specifically. Yeah,
and if you're traveling as a couple, even if you're not married, it might be a good idea just to say yes, you're married, because they'll straight out ask, are you married? If not, then take that as an excuse to hit on your partner in front of you. And the other thing is, if you're sitting down by yourself or in a group and you don't feel like talking to this drunk guy that wants to advance on the woman as a guy, don't present the guy to your girlfriends, your friends that are with. And as a girl, it's perfectly fine to completely ignore the guy as a way of him knowing that he's not interested. And that's often the shortest path to you being able to relax and have a good time in a place and not be molested.
So one of the other things to look forward to is the food in Latin America. As a vegan of 5 years, a lot of people thought that by coming to South America, what are you going to do? They eat so much meat there. What are you going to eat? It wasn't a problem for me at all. I've heard a lot of vegetarians and vegans making exceptions while traveling for different reasons, which is fine. But I always made sure that I had a kitchen to cook in because there's local markets almost everywhere. A lot of these countries are very food independent. I can't hardly think of many places I've been to that didn't have a fresh produce market, just with vibrant foods, a lot that you've probably never even seen before. So yeah, the food here, it's really fresh. And when it is organic, it truly is organic, not just like certified organic in the States where they might make some exceptions. And it's usually harvested within the same day or a couple days of when you're eating the food. So that's really nice. But one of the things to be prepared for around this topic is people get sick a lot in Latin America. There is a big lack in health code, if it even is in some places. Here it's not really much of a thing. You see meat in the market just sitting out all day with flies, everywhere. People are handling it with their bare hands, handing you change with just their hands covered in like slime and blood. Oh, it gets to me. Yeah. People also can fumigate a lot in the countryside. So we practice applied kinesiology, a strength muscle testing, to really test a lot of our food before we eat out.
When you're traveling, it's hard to know who's growing your food, right? And there's not really like certifying bodies for organic, not that I confide much in those. Yeah, using applied kinesiology, and also taking extra precaution for like leafy greens. If you're in a dry place that doesn't have a lot of water, then maybe they're not washing the vegetables properly, or are actually using dirty water, even black water, to cultivate it.
The next thing to look forward to about Latin America is how welcoming people are to strangers in their own homes. When I was traveling by myself, I'm super fortunate. In Peru, my tour guide welcomed me into his family, and he wasn't like most of the men that I've met in Bolivia, where he might have had a different intention behind it. He genuinely just wanted me to see how they ate, how they lived, to talk stories, to help me practice my Spanish, and welcomed me into his mother's home. This like 80-year-old woman who didn't have very much. She gave me the last pepper on one of her like indoor plants. And just, I can't even express how many times I've come across people who have genuinely wanted to spend time with me. And I had to use my intuition to make, to kind of check in and be like, all right, is there something weird going on here? And I was able to trust these people and have some really enlightening experiences surrounded with love. In Bolivia specifically, we experience on a daily basis almost just how generous the culture is here.
Yeah, when we first moved here, our neighbours would go past the tent every time we're visiting and invite us to drink some milk from their cows, and my daughter would chug down a litre, and every time we were here for a year, they wouldn't accept any payment for it. They'd invite us into their home and share meals with us and the like, and they're super generous. One thing to also recognise when they're doing that they're giving out of goodness, so to speak, and it's actually very good and energetic to reciprocate. They're not going to ask you to, but just recognise that they may not have the same resources that you are. They're sharing their food that they would have normally had as extras for dinner, so bring something, or the next time maybe they're not going to accept a payment because that's not really the same energy. Think about what you can give, something thoughtful, and they'll really appreciate that too.
Simon is really amazing and has inspired me to adapt to the culture in this way where it's like, we know we're going to a party, so we'll bring like a bag of veggies or some ginger beer or kombucha or a bottle of liqueur just to offer up, and even if we're only at the party for 5-10 minutes. And that's just how the culture works. I think it's really, really beautiful. So I feel like some of these things that we're sharing are just going to kind of contradict each other, but I think it's important to look forward to the good and be prepared for the worst. So to counter what we just spoke about, is I've had a lot of friends born and raised in Cochabamba. Not a lot, shouldn't say a lot, a couple, who have just told me, trust no one. Trust no one with what they say, especially when it comes to business or something that's really important, like a promise that they're making to you. People can take advantage of you if you trust them too much, too quick. And this is where I think intuition comes in, which is something that is a practice. I think if you're here more long term is something you really have to be aware of.
So they're very focused on real production and having land, and so a lot of them have a lot of land, but haven't got the capital or the ideas to develop it really. So one of the biggest scams, if you've moved to a place, is to invite you to invest on their land. Let's do a project together on my land. I have this land, and we'll share the sales and the profit equally after. And almost all of the foreigners that I know that live here in Bolivia, almost all of them have got a story about that. Take that with a grain of salt. It's better to buy the land yourself than invest in someone else's project.
So the last thing we want to mention to look forward to, and is probably our favorite parts, at least my favorite part about Latin America, is the connection to indigenous cultures and to nature, and how colorful and rich and ancient the history is here. And you can really feel it in places that I've never felt before. There's rich history everywhere because, a lot of the lands that we walk, no matter where you are, thousands of people for who knows how many years have been traveling, and lots of stories have happened in areas that we live. But there's something about the land here and all throughout Latin America. It just feels sacred, not necessarily always in a good way, but in a powerful, rich kind of way.
Yeah, it's striking to come from another place and see people walking with their customary clothes still. The majority of the women in this place are still wearing the poleras and the shirts, and they have their traditional hats and the aguayos, the blankets that signify where they come from. And the same with the holidays, the fiestas, and the customs. Amazing experiences, and super generous. A tip on that is, if you're going to be in a country for a Carnival or Dia de los Muertos or one of the local holidays, then try and book it in advance. Or that's one of the advantages of being a longer term volunteer, let's say 3 weeks or more, is that you can get to stay and participate in one of those holidays, whereas normally a host would rent their cabanas. It's too much of an opportunity cost otherwise.
The opposing thing to be prepared for, especially when being in the countryside like we are of some of these Latin American countries, there is a reputation for some of the indigenous cultures. They and I mean, this is actually the same in the countryside of Texas. People love to drink, love to party, but there is something I've noticed a little different in Latin America, that there's this heaviness, because where there's poverty, there's a lot of trauma that has stemmed from exploitation and corrupt government that has been long-lasting and passed down for generations and generations. And I've had to really work on changing my mindset without being so bitter towards some of the people here, because there is a heaviness and a darkness that I do receive from some of the people. There's a reason for it, that I won't ever fully understand. And it can be kind of shocking whenever you first really feel it and experience it. It can be difficult to extend some grace towards it, but I think that's really important.
I guess you should also just pick your place. Here in Misque, where we are, the people see foreigners largely as a source of new ideas and are genuinely interested in people from the outside. But if you just go 40 minutes down the road to Tintin, it's a much more closed and sort of dark society and not so welcoming. So yeah, assess the vibe and pick your places.
Yeah, and always come humbly, of course, and with respect, and you'll receive what you give. So I hope you get to thoroughly go and experience Latin America. And one of the ways that you can do that we highly recommend, through a platform called Worldpackers. It's a travel exchange platform where you can go work for food and lodging and travel for incredibly cheap. I have a whole video explaining about why Worldpackers is better than Workaway, which I can tag right here and in the description box. But Worldpackers gave us a discount code so that you can sign up and get $10 off for the annual membership. So go check them out, see what they're all about. They can help you figure out how to be a digital nomad and make money while you're traveling. If you're having a hard time budgeting to save up to travel, they have tons of videos from other people who've experienced this way of life. We receive a lot of people from Worldpackers, and yeah, it's a great way to travel. So thank you guys for watching. We're going to go have some lunch, and yeah, see you in the next one.
I hope that was useful.
And if you have some other tips to add for people who are watching this video that go against what we're saying or agree with what we're saying, you can share any of that in the comment section. So see ya. Thanks for being here, Simon.
Mm-hmm.